just cover off, just before Chris gets into the data stuff, a little bit of our story and the practice itself. So about 4 or 5 years ago, Sri and I decided we started to switch our farming system to regenerative practices, and through that journey, we come across a Bale grazing practice through Mark Anderson. Actually, he's in the room. I didn't even realise he was going to be here. So we decided to trial that with our springer mob. So we did 2 paddocks, and just to see what would happen. And we liked it so much we keep extending each year. So that's kind of how we started with this practice. And with the trial work, Carol Erickson, who's with from myself, who most of you might know, he noticed what we're doing, and we're in discussions, and he thought it would be great maybe we should just do a trial. So he approached Ross Monaghan to come and see the meeting, and he was really intrigued by the practice, and Chris was part of that. And that's how we started the trial. So the trial's been going for 3 years. This is just an even 3rd year now, so he's got probably about the year that Chris will share with us now.
So you set up this project with the idea of quantifying the effects of Bale wintering, approach on environmental, animal welfare, and greenhouse gas outcomes. We measured soil and water quality for 3 years. We've measured animal welfare last winter, and we measured nitrous oxide emissions also last winter. The approach was it's a well-drained soil, so we put ceramic forward cup solution samples used to measure the air losses. It's a randomised design which gives the research a lot of vigour and a lot of strength in terms of the data we're collecting. We set up 2 treatments, normal cow wintering, where we had 8 square metres per cow, and we offered them 12.5 kilograms of kale and 4.5 kilograms of baleage per day. And we compared that with the Bale grazing system, which was twice the area per cow, and they were offered 5.5 kilograms of pasture and 17.5 kilograms of hay per day.
This is just so we have photos throughout the presentation. I'll just talk to them as we go through. This is a photo of our springer mob on Bale grazing. This is start of day 2, end of day 2. Day 3. I didn't actually go through the practice, did I? I explained that, so I'll do that now. So typically what the practice of Bale grazing is about what we do is 30 bales per hectare we place out in the autumn. So we graze the paddock for the last time, and we start building up that feed. Then we place the bales out in a grid. You can sort of see the dot in a kind of a chess grid. And we close them up enough time so we can get about 3,000, 4,000 cover when we go to graze the paddock. And so we're typically in a mob size through winter, you have a mob of 100 cows. I'll go into a block of half a hectare with 15 bales that are, as you can see, no rings, all just standing free. We take the netting off and then they go for it. I'll go in and I'll hoover up for grass mainly in the first day, and then I'll have a diet of hay for the second 2 days. And then we shift them on, block graze them, back fence them, water trough, etc. Yeah, that's a real basic.
In terms of what they look like after grazing, that first photo there is immediately after grazing. In 2021, it was slightly wetter that year, and then 1 month after grazing, and then 2.5 months after grazing, and you can see the grasses recovered quite nicely. And we also measured that. And in terms of grass, you've got about 25% of the paddock as pasture, and the rest is bare soil, and 13 to 15% of the paddock is covered by the hay continually. And when you compare that 10 weeks later, you've virtually got all the bare ground has disappeared. And when you compare that with a full kale crop, you've still got bare ground right through until when you sow a new crop down the pasture in the spring. Last year we did some welfare findings. We put collars on, and we had a team come down from Ruakura who spent 3 days out there monitoring the cows day and night. And in terms of the findings, the main one is the Bale grazed cows have greater cow comfort. They spent more time lying down on day 1. For the trial period, we only had them on the plots for 2 days. and they're in postures indicative of greater cow comfort. They spent more time ruminating, from what the collies were telling us, and they were warmer in terms of skin temperature and cleaner in terms of mud on the side. Their lying behaviour did vary with the weather conditions, and the crop cows were more variable in their response to weather, so if it got cold or wet, the way they behaved was quite different. In terms of long-term physiological impacts, that data is still being looked at, I understand, and we're not too sure, because Dylan would give them some data going into the thing, but what I do know is the calves, in terms of the calves born, were no different in size between the tail mob and the Bale wintering mob.
Just so you get it here how we place the bales on a bit of a hillside at a runoff, and there's an in-cut heifers on this block. You can see the distance on the hill block, it looks like the bales are sort of spread out a bit more. So even though there's slope, you can still do that. You get the odd bale, you can see this one here's gone out of control. Love kind of bunt it and play around with it. But we tend now to flip them onto their side so that they don't roll away. And so just before they go in there, pretty much. But that's pretty much a typical layout of the bale grazing.
In terms of nitrate leaching, this graph here shows the concentrations of nitrate in the drainage. The cows were grazed here, and for the kale, you get a steady increase of nitrate in the drainage water until the drainage stopped. Whereas for the bale grazing, it was in the winter. In the red, you get it goes up a little bit, but stays relatively constant. And over the 3 years, on average, we have had probably a quarter of the nitrogen leached under the bale grazing than we get leached under the kale system.
Leading into the trial, Chris, that was one of the main objectives, right?
Yeah.
Is to look at the nitrogen leaching differential.
Yeah, differential use.
Yeah.
In terms of our intakes, dry matter intake is very similar for the two treatments. In terms of metabolisable energy, the bale grazing does have slightly lower metabolisable energy, but we're still above the line, which is the intake of metabolised energy that a 450 kilogram cow needs to during pregnancy and also to put on body condition score. The bale grazing is slightly low in crude protein, but Dylan's very kindly measured body condition score for us each year, and we still get a half a condition score at least between June and July when the two measurements are done. So it doesn't look at this time as if that lower crude protein is having too much of an effect.
That's pretty much a reflection of the previous deal as well. So there was pretty much nothing in it between the bale grazing and the cow condition score gain between the two. One was always slightly ahead of the other in each one, but there was virtually nothing to be concerned about. So even with that drop in crude protein on the bale grazing practice, condition was still good on.
Yeah. And most of that drop in crude protein is due to the quality of the hay.
So this is on actually the same paddock soil those heifers were before. This is about a week to 2 weeks after we grazed it. So it was quite good growing in that particular time of the year, but here I can actually start to see a little bit of greenery coming through. But we typically would get, if there's seed in the hay, which is what you ultimately want, so get the germination of the seed that's in the hay come through, and you'll see what happens. This is what happens. So that's from the seed in the hay bale. That's germinated and grown through. So this is about November of the same season. Look at the pictures, they see how dark they are. That's a sign of nutrient density. And so when I typically put young stock into some of these bale grazing paddocks, for grazing, they'll go straight to the patches first and graze those patches because they can sense that that's where the goodness is. And then I'll go for the other bits after that. So we'll have this germinating in a lot of bales in sort of July because the temperature in the litter is a couple of degrees higher than the soil beside it. So you'll get germination happening early, and that's how things start to crop up. And then the litter feeds into the soil, which then transitions the health of that soil to a lot better to become here's the result there.
In terms of the main key observations we've made so far is, in terms of plant cover in October, the cow, we've got nothing because there's still bare ground. Yet the bale grazing has got in excess of 3,000 kilograms of dry matter, so it can go back into the grazing round usually at the start of the second round. Plant nitrogen uptake, there's none in the cow, but for the 3 years we've used about 49 kilograms of nitrogen was taken up by the bale grazing paddocks and grass. So you've virtually got a cover crop going in as soon as you've grazed. In leaching, in terms of kilograms of nitrogen per cow, we've got a 74% decrease in nitrogen leaching. In terms of soil damage, surface roughness, which is the pugging, once again you've got about 25% of it for the bale grazing, which is only 2% increase compared to an 8.8% increase under the kale. VSA Visual Soil Assessment Score, which we do in October each year, the 6 is anything below 10 is the soil is quite badly damaged. So under the kale, the soil is showing quite badly damaged, yet at 16 it's quite good condition. Soil loss risk, this is in terms of sediment loss, and it's probably more applicable to sloping ground. You've got up to 1.6 kilograms per tonnes per hectare per year of soil you could lose under that cow grazing system if you get a storm event while it's still bare ground, compared to only 0.13 under the bale grazing. So you've got about a 90% improvement. In terms of nitrous oxide emissions, which we measured last year, once again you've got quite a big improvement of 68%. Lower nitrous oxide emissions under the bale grazing than under the typical cow wintering system. What we think might be the cause of this is, the first is the lower grazing pressure, because you've got twice the area of the cow. More soil arm strength provided by the established pasture, which is remaining there once you've grazed and wintering. We've got well drained soils where this trial's carried out, and quite a dry winter, only 150 to 200 millimetres rainfall, compared to the likes of the dairy hub where you're probably close to twice that over the winter period. And reduced cow trafficking and milling due to the loafing surface provided by the residual hay and the 3-day break. So they're there 3 days, they move on before they can do much damage. Finally, I'd like to thank Dylan for allowing us on the farm, the place to do this work, and also the NPI funding. Any questions?
The pasture type looked quite good quality, I guess, rather than low quality. And so, how well do you maintain the quality year in, year out?
Yeah, so 2 years ago, I think 3 years ago, we had a dry spell through, and we had poor quality grass going into at our runoff. Because I shut up early and it was dry, and there was a lot of seed here that was kind of rubbish and feed, but that acted as soil armour, so that was really good for protecting the soil during the winter. So when it got literally very little, if any, pugging at all. You still got really good. The condition score game was still fine, but yeah, typically that would be what it was, what you saw on the paddock here, and it seemed to come through and maintain. Yeah, on the dairy farm, quality was always there. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, normally when you get a bit of pugging, you actually get a lot of weeds, so it looks green. But actually, if you assessed it, well, actually, how productive is it actually become after the pugging?
Yeah. So so we do get a little bit of pugging, particularly around the quarter trough, but weather events especially. So we've got my estimate for what the damage we get is about 2 to 3% of stuff we have to go and total repair, and about between 5 to 8% of stuff we go on with a drill normally, and just patch up that little semi-poaching areas. Yeah, and then we just come through good as gold. So paddock 22, which is the trial, has been held for the last 3 years, and we've been bale grazing the paddock for 4 years. I looked up this morning on we do a pasture walk every week to see, when we went into that paddock 4 years ago, it was our worst paddock by quite a reasonable shot. And now we've got 53 paddocks, and now it's number 38. So it's actually improved. And all we've done is bale grazed on that paddock for 3-4 years. We've got another paddock that we've done it for 3 years, and it was ranked in the bottom third. My gut feel was because it's why we went there. And now it's ranked 14th in 53. So my view is we're actually regenerating those paddocks, improving them. We haven't done any, apart from patching, we've patched work with, those patch areas, we haven't really done anything else apart from this. Sorry.
Did you test the quality of the hay? Did you do any samples test it?
Yep.
The second question is, what ages did you start the capital on it? Two questions.
Yeah, good. You want to show the note on the hay.
Yeah, the hay is,
Well, it didn't, oh no, you just said dry matter.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
yeah. The hay is, in terms of quality, the hay has got the lowest ME and the lowest protein of any of the feeds that the cows get, which is why we've got 2 years where the crude protein levels are less than optimal. But yeah, the hay hasn't been ideal in both cases. Over 1 year, the ME. Hay has got the lowest ME and the lowest protein of any of the feeds that the cows get, which is why we've got 2 years where the crude protein levels are less than optimal. But yeah, the hay hasn't been ideal in both cases. Over 1 year, the ME was only about 9.7 or 9.8 for the hay, so it was quite low.
So we to the second question, we do graze our own Stockholm, but we go 50% hay, 50% balance, and that's mainly actually installed in actually. We have one day to talk about the protein for growth, and it made. I think what I was already doing it, but you highlighted that was good practice. So we're very happy with our stock growth rates. I haven't done any measurements, I'm sorry on it, but I spoke to someone in Canterbury who has done my on-farm grazing with 50-50, and he's more than happy with his weight gains compared to his traditional colour stuff. So it's very good.
Thank you. Why hay and not Bale?
Pipe, plastic, that works, and you've got seed in the bale that will germinate itself through to get that result of the soil that grass run through. With baleage, you haven't got seed in the bale, so what I've done with them is gone along and sprinkled seed on them just recently to get that to reseed through.
Excellent supplementary question. Where are you getting the hay from to trust that it's not?
Yeah.
Just because we know crappy grasses seed earlier, so
Yeah.
that if it was crap,
That's right.
hay with like lots of dogtail and other grasses, then you're going to get more of that integral part.
Yeah, so 2/3 of the hay that we feed, we try to get off our own system, so we know where it's coming from. We get our source, and we have got some pictures of the filter from. So, and so it is where you get it from, but you just do a bit of homework if you can to see where it comes from. But it's still, you see how green that is, it's still good quality, but it's not very good grass, of course. So you can, what we find is you don't tend to get weeds come through, because I believe that the soil health is so good that weeds tend to turn up when there's an issue with the soil, and then I try and fix it. Roots going down and fix it. That answer.
Dylan, I was just going to add to your answer to Luke's question about the baleage. The other thing, when we went out and had a look at what Dylan's doing and then compared it to, I guess, where our baleage sits in our paddock, because of the acidity of the baleage, it basically kills the grass underneath it. So you actually end up with bare patches here rather than whereas the hay, as Dylan said, you've got the seeds in it, and as well it doesn't acidify the surrounding areas, so you get things growing back through.
We've tended to use dry baleage too, so we don't get as much as necessarily as we have the wheat, so I guess that.
And how heavy are you bales in drying? How heavy are they?
Oh,
As in drying?
yeah, good. So 5/4 is what we tend to use, or in between, but you can use whatever size you like.
And the ice.
Oh, right.
How many weight, yeah, how many
Oh,
kilograms?
300 kilo.
300.
Yeah. Yeah. But people, you can use whatever you like, I guess. People use filter force. There's someone, Canterbury using square bones, but you don't want to post them out too far ahead of time if the weather events come in, decreasing the quality of those, yeah.
I might say if you're leaving the hay bales out from the water.
Yeah, our hay is out since it's made, so when it turns out, we'll make it and we'll just put it, if we make it in the paddock on the runoff, we'll just put it to the side of the fence and it'll be exposed. So it's not ideal, it's not the easy to look at the place to cover it and put it. But I'm looking to trial getting some Hollands made up this year. What I'm just doing is, making sort of pyramids of and put them over between the containers and hanging off them to see if we can reduce the wastage of that. But also remember that 20% of the bale goes into the litter at least, and so that stuff that's not very nice will become
Doing, because I suppose what we were doing at home too, and one of the observations we had, whether you've seen this as well, that we see an awful lot of bale. I suppose one of the significant differences is that bales are grazed in blocks, not grazed in the face. And one of the things we've seen at home is that the major differences is that around cow behaviour, to your point, Chris, around lying and they're a lot more settled. So when we're feeding on a face and the intensity was the same and allocation was the same, but the cow behaviour was different. So they're actually moving and making a lot more mess on a face than they are when they're fed in blocks. So yeah, seeing that
Yeah, we tend to block graze
Yeah.
because of that reason. And I think some work years ago that Gary and Zed did was trial work that very thing. They tend to walk in strips. Yeah. That's probably maybe, well, in strips of grass, but certainly it's not probably lots of work. Yeah. So there's Ewan Matheson and Mark Anderson in this group that Mark Anderson's been doing more than I have, longer than I have, and Ewan's been doing it the last 2 years as well. So if you want to ask any questions, these guys will be lots of knowledge. Yeah.
Did you look at the costing difference between the
Yeah.
cannabis and which is really distributed?
It was tricky for me to do a comparison. When what I come to was I had just compared because they're quite different systems. In our situation, with right to the growing situation, and I did I can't remember what I came conclusion, but 250 hectare blocks, and I had it. So in this handout, there's stuff basically stuff out of my head down here, but I had a comparison, but it hasn't been completed. This is from 3 years ago. So when you include the grass growing over that period where the crop it's great, post-grazing won't grow. For us, the bar grazing was more economical than the kale. And with in that scenario, I did, because it's a 52 hectare block, I didn't need that area for the cow grazing. But we made that to Bale and sold it. I just put a market value on that to just try and get some sort of comparison. So it's not essentially all just kale, but I didn't know how else to do it. Someone else didn't come there on the, yeah. For our situation, we felt it was justified. So
Dylan,
yeah.
if you were farming down here, let's say,
Yeah.
what would you do differently? I mean, would you adopt exactly that system up there?
Yeah, well, you want to comment on that because you farm on the weather again just down the road.
So sorry, what was the question?
Well, I guess it's wasted of the fact that we know that weather's a better weather pattern in the north than the south, and therefore is it applicable? Well, how applicable is it just to translate that to the south?
So we've had quite a wet winter this year, and we've done more damage through this process than we did the previous year. But it's still, we've got a lot more soil structure. We were employing best practice around cropping, and still losing a lot of soil out of our system. and actually having some significant impacts around animal welfare as a result of that too. And so through this process, we've got far better structure, we've got better animal, and I'm not necessarily measuring it around condition scores, but actually better outcomes around animal welfare. You know, I've seen cows in July playing on breaks, and they're not necessarily empty cows. You know, one calf, they're actually, you know, quite content, quite, is quite good. So, yes, there is a degree of damage, and we've had to double shift, you know, instead of 3 days into 2 days. So it's a similar sort of, I suppose you've got to have that built-in capacity, you know, in a cropping situation to move on, and we do have to in bale grazing as well. So,
Help answer this is some data we've done last year from drone footage on farm that we're doing the system, and you can see that if you get into the southern South Island here, you've got a higher percentage of bare ground, purely because it's wetter and you do more damage. But the amount of percent green in terms of pasture is quite similar. Well, even early October, we put the drone over.
So to manage that a bit, we always factor in about 50 to 20% more than what we technically require for the winter, so that when you have wet weather events, you can move them on quicker. So it's about how you manage it, not necessarily the system. And then for us anyway, if you get frosty or it dries out, we'll come back and just try and load those bales back down and move on quicker. And that's kind of how you manage it. But yeah, we are drier in the north and south of it on our runoff on the hill block that you saw there with the photos. Yeah. That soil is really heavy and it just goes like slurry when it's wet. So, and we have done some damage this year, like you and here, I'm sure. But the previous 2 seasons on that same ground it was perfect. So you just got to manage way through that again. So
You can see from that photo, that area there, there's a lot more bare ground damage, so it's probably grazed under wetter conditions.
Yeah.
So you'll get it.
So that I suppose to quantify the week or two, three of the paddocks that we wintered on are on the platform, and we've been back at the end of the round. We're back across those.
yes.
Just, oh, sorry. Just a couple of minutes left. I was just wondering, Dawn, would you give some context from the hub point of view? With your grass and baleage wintering, in terms of how much of that you'd have to do some sort of rejuvenation of the pasture?
So I guess what we've been doing for the last couple of years is the baleage wintering, and at quite a higher bale density, and also doing daily shifts, because it would be nice to do 3-day shifts, but we can't afford the number of ring feeders that we would need to have to be able to do that. We essentially don't plan those paddocks that we bale winter on, ones that we're going to be regrassing. So we don't plan on there being any grass in there. However, we have noticed this year that depending on the weather conditions, some of them have held up better than others. So we've been able to get, like at the end of the first round, we've been able to get a little bit, not a full grazing out of them, but there has been enough to put animals through there. And I guess that's what we've been playing around a little bit with the density, but I think part of it is that the more square metres per cow. So on our baleage winter, we're about 6 to 7 square metres per cow. So you're more than double that, and yeah, on daily shifts as well. So you've got more of a face rather than a block with the setup.
So what you see with those, when you saw the cows, I mean, a lot of them are standing on the hay. They don't, the actual physics of it that you don't necessarily really think about is that if they're standing and sitting on the hay, they're not walking on the pasture damaging. So that's where we see that a big part of the lesser damage on the pastures, because it's, if you have wrinkle nose, you can't do that. So, yeah.
And that picture is very similar to when we've rolled out straw on our crop paddocks. And we've got photos of basically that straw bale is just cows lying on it.
I mean, what people can do, they look at this, they go, oh, damage, or they look at the, maybe the negatives, or well, you can't do that, etc. But when you look at the whole picture, there's lots of positives in this. Nitrates for one, welfare and welfare, those sorts of things. Things that you've got challenges are making hay in Southland. That's a challenge. So buy it in elsewhere, but you can make hay in Southland. You just got to try and pick the weather right, which is very difficult, especially down this way. But Ewan lives just down the road. He's doing it right. And even like Mark's soil type, and then that picture you saw, that was part of his post. That's clay soils, so he's doing on regular soil type. So we can find reasons in our head that we shouldn't be doing it. There's actually so many other positives that sometimes we don't think about. That's what I've learned from this whole process, is that you consider the whole, and actually as I mentioned, the paddocks that we're doing are actually improving themselves just by doing this practice.
Great, thanks Dylan. Dawn, you've got one quick question to ask.
This was actually to ask Ewan, because I know what he's been playing around with out on his farm. You put in the different pasture species to see whether there was any difference there in terms of how they held up. Is there any?
So we had, thanks for asking, Geordie. So we established 2 years ago, we're coming up 3 years ago now, established 4 paddocks with fescue, cocksfoot, short and long-term ryegrass. And we trialled one of those paddocks, and that was the one where I was talking about those particular cows grazed on the face. Not significant differences last year, Dawn was, but what we're seeing, one of those paddocks, or a couple of those paddocks that were taken through and allowed to mature, because obviously the cocksfoot and fescues take a bit longer to mature. But we Bale grazed on this year, there is a difference in pasture damage. So those grasses that are the cocksfoot or fescues with the greater root structure, they've actually held up better. So we're doing quite a bit of remedial work on the paddocks that we're actually that we're Bale grazing on this year, and establishing or using seed that is, those deeper rooting, stronger grasses. Yes, our performance might be quite the same, but actually that's not a key focus for those particular areas, because so we've got paddocks that we're going back. This year we've second and third time with Bale grazed on them, and next year will be again and again. So we've actually got a system rather than actually have to try and, I've spoken to guys that have actually water blocked to crop on for wintering cows, and you actually wind up in a situation where you actually run out. They've got to buy another block, they've got to move on. Well, in this system we can potentially go on and on and on.
Okay, sorry guys, I'm going to have to shut it off there, or Kelly will come and shout at me, and nobody wants that. So can you just please show your appreciation to Chris and Dylan?